And welcome back to the show. We're talking about the cost of weddings today, planning a wedding on a budget. If you're not going through it, you know somebody that is. And today we have several vendors that have joined us here in the studio. Ladies, thank you so much for being here. We have Dawn Davis as a baker. Dawn, say hello. Where are you? Okay, there's Dawn. Stephanie Lunsford will take those amazing photographs that you always need to capture the moment. And Christine has your flowers covered, right?
Yes,
so ladies, thanks for coming on the show. And there is some information I'm sure you have that you can share with our viewing audience that will help them, because it's expensive, as we all know, to plan a wedding. We're talking about an average of $30,000 these days. So let's begin with photography. What are some of the things that brides, grooms need to know?
Some of the things that are helpful is that photography comes in wedding packages, typically. Those packages include your engagement session, your bridals, and then your actual wedding, and then the reception. Some people like to shave the cost of that by maybe not taking engagement photos, or not doing the bridal, or not having a long drawn-out wedding reception. Typically, the cost of photography can go from $1,000 to $10,000. It just depends on how seasoned your photographer is. Do your research. You've got to look through their work. Look through, if they were mentored, look through who they were mentored by, and look at their mentor's work as well. That will give you an idea of whether they're a natural light photographer or if they're better at flash photography. And that all depends on the time of day of your wedding as well.
Very good. Dawn, we have to have a cake.
Absolutely.
What are some of the hidden costs when it comes to purchasing your wedding cake?
Well, pricing on cakes usually go by how many servings that the cake feeds, and then also the degree of difficulty of putting the cake together. The flowers, if it's got fondant flowers, you can go buttercream, or you can go with fondant covered cakes. So those are the things you have to look for when you're going to order a cake. I actually work under the cottage food law. I'm licensed and insured through the state, and my prices are a little bit less expensive than going to a full bakery. So they can look that way to try to find a good baker that they could come and sit with and have a cake tasting, and then they can, discuss the pricing of the cake.
Is it true that if you have someone cut your cake that they're going to charge you per slice?
Some people do. Some caterers
Really?
will charge almost sometimes as much as the cake itself per serving. They will charge per slice that they have to cut for the cake. So that's one thing you want to find out from the caterer. Are they going to charge to cut the cake?
That might be where you want to go ahead and do it yourself.
Or find a friend.
Very good. Now let's talk about the flowers. Flowers are very important, obviously, as well. So Christine, what advice do you have to get beautiful flowers and cut your cost at the same time?
Well, I think the most important thing is to come in to see the designer who you're going to be working with a budget already in mind. Because what we typically do is try to make sure you got your essentials. So you're going to need your bouquets. Bridal bouquet you probably will spend a little bit more money on. You're going to need your boutonnieres and need your corsages. And many times the church doesn't need to be decorated as much, but you'll spend money again on centerpieces at the reception. What I normally tell brides, the biggest way to cut costs is to invite less people, because then you need less centerpieces. And then try to go with in-season flowers. So if you're trying to go for something that's out of season, then we're importing them. They're going to cost more. It's good to go with flowers that are readily available. And also go with maybe monochromatic flowers or groupings. Or designs. That way you're not spending a lot of money on flowers. It's absolutely much cheaper if all the flowers are pretty much the same color.
This is quite the arrangement that you have right here. Tell me about it and the cost of something like this.
Okay, so taller centerpieces tend to be a little bit more pricey because they have to be larger pretty much, but the cost on taller centerpieces can be anywhere from $100 to $300. Some are more, some are less, but it depends on how many flowers we're going to be using, what type of flowers we're going to be using, and whether the flowers are in season or not. So that could also make a big difference.
Let me go back to Stephanie for just a moment about photography. Obviously, you want to capture the moment. What is your thought about hiring a professional photographer versus having somebody you know that you think is a decent photographer capture those moments?
Experience. You're going to pay for what you get, because somebody who has more experience taking those moments, they know exactly what's coming and what to look for. They have the eye to know when they're going to get the kiss, when they're going to get the bride and groom cutting the cake together, when they just have a feel for it. Your cousin may come up and just snap a picture. The quality is going to be completely different. The higher range cameras are the better, and you just can't get that with your average digital cameras. You have to have a professional grade camera to get those pictures that are going to be spot on.
Could you just wipe out a videographer and maybe focus on that? That might save you a little bit of money just to get the still photos. I don't know what your opinion is on that.
My personal opinion is I would stick with the pictures, because when you possibly have children later down the road, they're going to look at mommy and daddy's wedding pictures, and those are going to be there forever. So I would prefer pictures.
Dawn, any thoughts about the cake? Final thoughts, ways to save and get a beautiful cake like you have here on display?
Yes, if they want to go with something that's buttercream iced, a little less expensive than getting a cake that's fondant covered, saves you a little bit. Most cakes start anywhere, depending on the baker, from $3.75 per person per serving, up to $8 or $9, sometimes $10 per serving if you go with a fondant covered cake.
Ladies, great job. Thank you. Very good information. I think we've learned a lot, and we know how to get something good and also save a little bit. So we're going to have much more coming up, but thank you. What a display you guys have put on here. Someone has to get paid to clean up after the wedding. Did you think about that? Well, Public Affairs on Peach looks at what else you're going to have to write checks for. And we want to save you money. So come back, and we'll tell you about it. Public Affairs on Peach right after the break.